12 years ago, Chicago Booth's Marianne Bertrand and Harvard's Sendel Mullainathan sent out nearly 5,000 fictitious resumes in response to more than 1,300 employment ads. Half of the resumes had white-sounding names. The other half were assigned African-American sounding names. You might be able to guess what happened even if you haven't heard of this study. The researchers found that people with white-sounding names were 50% more likely to get a callback for an interview. The results were so staggering that the study design was adapted again and again. The studies are known as correspondence studies, and they've been helping to document discrimination in action all over the world for more than a decade. Researchers in Peru conducted a similar experiment. They sent out resumes in response to vacancies for professional, technical, and unskilled jobs. They found that applicants with white-sounding names consistently received higher callback rates than applicants with indigenous names. Similarly, in China, researchers found that applicants with Han names received significantly more callbacks than applicants with Mongolian, Uyghur, and Tibetan names, and that there was less discrimination in tight labor markets where jobs are difficult to fill. Researchers in Belgium looked more deeply into the question of tight labor markets. They found that candidates with Turkish-sounding names were equally likely to be invited to a job interview if they applied for jobs that were hard to fill. But for jobs that were easy to fill, applicants with Turkish-sounding names would have to send twice as many applications to get the same number of callbacks. The results are equally dire in Ireland and in Australia. This is despite the fact that 1 in 4 residents of Australia is born overseas. Notice that applicants with Italian names are less discriminated against than other minority groups. Correspondence studies have also been really popular in studying discrimination in the housing market. Over the last decade, researchers have been sending out fictitious emails in reply to rental apartment ads across the United States. The housing market studies consistently show that discrimination against African Americans is significant and persistent. In one of the most recent studies, researchers found that the response rate for African American home seekers was 6.3% lower than for whites across 10 cities. In Boston and Los Angeles, the response rate difference was significantly larger than in all other cities. Similar studies have been done in Italy, in Spain, and in Sweden. Furthermore, the expansion of online platforms has allowed economists to use the correspondence study design to research discrimination in retail markets. A study of the sports trading card market found that female, non-white male, and older white male sellers receive significantly worse initial offers from buyers than young white male sellers. And while experienced minority sellers were able to negotiate those offers up to be roughly in line with the initial offers young white males received, they had to spend more time bargaining to get there. Female sellers had to spend more than twice the time bargaining that young white males did. In a study that just came out this year, researchers analyzed real eBay data for the 420 most popular products sold by private sellers between 2009 and 2012. They found that female sellers received lower final bids than equally qualified male sellers for identical products. There are more studies, all pointing to the same thing. Discrimination persists around the world, and one of the most destructive effects of discrimination is that it can turn biased perceptions into reality. For instance, a recent study suggests that when teachers show favoritism towards boys at an early stage of schooling, this benefits boys in the long term and hurts girls. The researchers show that increasing teacher bias from 0 to the maximum level of discrimination observed in the sample increases the probability of boys successfully completing advanced math courses in high school by 11% and decreases the probability for girls by 8%. Similarly, another recent study has found that manager bias negatively affects minority job performance. When minority cashiers at a French grocery chain are scheduled to work with biased managers, they are absent more often, spend less time at work, scan items more slowly, and take more time between customers. Non-minority cashiers are not affected negatively by biased managers. But with the exception of a few exemplary studies, we really don't have data that demonstrate the consequences of discrimination or suggest interventions that may undermine it. So while the research documenting discrimination is there, it's not enough. Perhaps we should stop trying to prove that discrimination exists and turn our attention to finding solutions.